I've come at this ancient age to the view that if your family is not welcoming, the journey will not be successful. We see that if we're not welcoming, we have no future. None. Zip. Zero. No future.
Welcome to the Love, Wisdom, Money podcast. On this program, you'll meet some of the family stewards and their advisors I've had the privilege of working with over my career and hear their stories, experiences to help you make more informed decisions on how to enrich your family wealth, your love, wisdom, and money. Welcome to Love, Wisdom, Money, where we spend our time with you talking about directing traffic at the intersection of family values and family finance. Today, our guest co-host is someone who's been instrumental, if not responsible, for the birth of this program and the Love, Wisdom, Money movement itself. Someone I've learned from, admired, and followed for the past 25 years, and had the privilege of meeting at the Purposeful Planning Institute, a nonprofit think tank dedicated to helping families flourish. Jay Hughes is a sixth-generation counselor at law and prolific author. He's a pioneer in working directly with multi-generational families with an emphasis on governance issues and has become the leading voice for a more enlightened, expansive approach to family office management. Welcome to the program, Jay. We are just delighted you're here with us.
Well, buddy, this is something long looked forward to, and I am delighted today that the day has arrived and we can have a chat together. Thank you for inviting me.
It's just our pleasure. Well, rather than a typical interview framework, a unique aspect of this podcast is our guest co-host format, where the guest picks the topic and we share real-life experiences about it. When I asked Jay what he thought our listeners might want to get into today, he posed a question. Is yours a welcoming family? So Jay, maybe you can tell us a story or two about the difference between welcoming families and those not so welcoming.
Buddy, you mentioned that I've been at this a long time. In fact, I walked into the first law firm I worked for in New York City in 1967. That is a long time ago. And one of my teachers was my dad, who had already been there about 35 years. And together, we had a wonderful 19 years of practice, and he was my great teacher. So today, probably I'll quote him 2 or 3 times. It's easy for me to do. If I went back to his life as he shared it with me, and I went through my life and trying to help families flourish, I've come at this ancient age to the view that if your family is not welcoming, the journey will not be successful. And what is the journey? The journey in my mind is, can you reach the 5th generation of your family? It's thriving and flourishing and sees what James Carr said in this great book, An Infinite Horizon. Yes, that is possible. And it is aspirational, it is spiritual in so many ways. Where does it begin? It begins with the question of welcoming. What do I mean by this? Well, if we took for a moment the understanding of how human families begin, they always begin with 2 people who have an affinity, no blood, no the little DNA, but tiny a bit because of the shuffle. No blood. And they have an affinity for each other. Affinity, by the way, is the positive connecting word in English language for 2 or more people who share a common desire to have great relationships. That's why I use that word. So these two people have an affinity. They are welcoming. And their promises to each other, which are basically each of us will enhance each other's journey of happiness. That's what the vows are about. That's what the promises are about, enhancing each other's journey of happiness. Inherent in that is the selfish hope that someone will do that for us, but we can't know. We only know what we can do for ourselves, right? We know we can enhance this lady and this man's life. We hope they might enhance ours. That's the beginning of family, isn't it? That's where it starts. So it starts with an affinity, and it starts as a welcoming system. If it can grow those two wonderful attributes, virtues I would call them, I seek to enhance your journey of happiness, hope you will do mine. We have an affinity, and we are welcoming. That's the beginning, isn't it? And every generation after that must go through the same process. I call it a horizontal social compact, but forget all the big words. It just means that every generation decides at some point, gosh, we have an affinity too. And we're each other. And actually, we have no future if we're not welcoming. So let me say one more thing about this so I'm not droning on. The tragedy so often when the advisors get involved is the advisors begin to talk to their potential clients or clients about all the things that can go wrong. They never talk to them about all the things that must go right. Love, wisdom, money, love and wisdom are all about what goes right. There must be love and there must be wisdom. Then the money has a job to do. Grow those. Grow your love, grow your wisdom. That's the job to do, just as we discussed before. So the great question of welcoming is where the beginning of any process of thinking about the future should start. Has to start there. And if we're really honest with each other, and we have to be really honest because this is hard work, we see that if we're not welcoming, we have no future. None. Zip. Zero. No future. No way to grow love, no way to grow wisdom because we're not welcoming. We're in the wrong foot. You know that great Chinese philosopher who said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. But what he meant was the first right step, and he didn't mean not your left or right foot. He meant the first right step of a journey of 1,000 miles of a family to get to the fifth generation, buddy, is to be welcoming.
So sounds like the families that aren't welcoming are kind of fear-based rather than
Worse than that. They're full of a belief someone's going to steal from them. Yes, of course, fear, but it's even deeper.
Oh, I have something to be stolen from me. Ouch.
so how do you get past that? I mean, fear is a natural tendency, and none of us want to be ruled by fear. I mean, what a terrible life that would be. But how does somebody get past that? What have you seen where people have overcome that fear?
Well, generosity and kindness are two extraordinary virtues in a human community. In fact, I would say again, with this long, long life I've lived, if the system isn't generous, that is about giving and sharing, then it must be about the opposite. And we know that the miser system doesn't work. We have the books, we have the stories, we know the answer to that one. So we know we have generosity is critical. We must be free of desire to control, but rather feel comfortable making a gift.
And then kindness is hugely important. Would you agree?
Oh, well, you're talking to the right guy. My mother was what they used to call a beautician, and actually had a salon, which they called a beauty shop back then, in our house. And there were some women that would come into this beauty shop that didn't necessarily like each other. My mother was a peacemaker, and she had a sign in the beauty shop that said "Kindness spoken here." So so that's the way I was brought up, and that's why for me, when I see people that are afraid or think that somebody's, guy trying to put their hand in their pocket, um, it's it's difficult to understand that that's the main thing they're thinking about, rather than the kindness and the generosity, gratitude. Uh, I heard something once where someone, I think it was a guy by the name of Dan Sullivan, he said, uh, the word appreciation means make more valuable. So when you're grateful to someone, you are actually appreciating you're appreciating their value, and that has much more power than fear. Actually, it's probably the antidote to fear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And um,
If I can come back what I said in the very beginning and add it now here, the decision by the two people to begin a family is full of aspiration, of kindness and caring. It creates a culture of care. If I care, I appreciate exactly the word you're using. The problem so often is that you naturally fear someone, not you, buddy, but someone naturally fears something being taken away from them because they think they own it. Now, that is a fallacy of itself, isn't it? We don't own anything. We might be responsible for stewarding or custodying or something for some period of time. But one of the great problems in the families, and I'll go a little further here, is this. Each of us is a piece of stardust, working our way through consciousness. We know that. Hmm. Every once in a while, among the human beings on the planet, someone is born whose task in that lifetime is to take energy and turn it into matter. That's their job in this lifetime. That should be impossible for a human being. So the first thing we have to know is if in this lifetime that's our task, that we are incredibly abnormal. All people we help are abnormal, only that in a silly way. They've done something extraordinary. Now, the problem is, can you grow beyond that action? Can you become comfortable integrating that into your life as simply one action? Or does it freeze you? And the problem of ownership is if it is a form of freezing rather than a form of stewardship.
you're in terrible trouble yourself.
You just don't get it.
No, and then you say, I want grandchildren, but your children don't come home very often. Because every time they come home, you just tell them about the time that you took energy and made it matter. They say, yeah, Dad, we thought you did that. Or Mom, we did it. We're really proud of it. It's great. But, we have lives of ourselves. We're doing our own work here. Oh, well, my story is compelling because it's so unusual. It is unusual. But the hero has to live beyond the success of that one event.
Wow. You got my head spinning. That's
Let me say one more thing. Growing a family as you mentioned to me when we were starting this morning, brothers, and maybe there were some sisters, but anyway, lots of you.
Is an art. Your mother not only was kind, she was an artist. Of course she was. And growing a great family is an art. It is a calling. And by the way, one of the funny things about leading a family, again, this person who's done the abnormal act took energy, made it matter, and gets frozen by the action, is that growing a human community requires leading it from behind, not in front. The Chinese wisdom of Lao Tzu in 500 BC about the greatest leader being the one whose followers say we did it ourselves, that's a great family. And by the way, the leader of that family is an elder, not an older. And the elder says, my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to encourage you to do that which you are meant to do. Now I am welcoming. Now I have a family. And sooner or later, we might even be a tribe. We might even be a culture. We might even be a system. But kindness, caring,
Leading from behind, these are the core ingredients.
I watched your video on spiritual intelligence with, I think it was Dr. Lisa Miller.
Yes, right.
And I noticed that in that video you mentioned caritas, which is Latin for love, if I'm not mistaken. Well, our new Pope, our new American Pope, is an Augustinian. And Augustine of Hippo was a great thinker of his time. And my son went to an Augustinian all-boys high school. And every week at Mass, they would have Mass every Wednesday morning to start the day off. They had 3 banners in the sacristy, and they were Caritas, Veritas, and Unitas. And Augustine's main point was cor unum, which is one heart. And I noticed in your video, you talked about one heart. And I would assume you're talking about a family, but you could probably be talking about the community, of mankind. But can you elaborate a little bit on that?
all of my experience of life is that care, caritas, the heart, courage, by the way, is also from the heart. That's what the word, it speaks to this question of journey. And how do we express care, kindness? It's so easy to be unkind. It's also very easy to be kind. Both are natural to us as human beings. One leads to nothing but suffering. Being unkind, first is unkind to self, and second is unkind in whatever way we act. But acting from caritas, from kindness, from caring, is how we have a great life. And by the way, also in that, as I said in that wonderful moments with Lisa, one of the things that I've observed, buddy, that comes up in this moment for me in thinking with you is this. I wrote a book called The Family Wealth and Wisdom, The Cycle of the Gift. And in this book with Keith Whitaker and Susan Massenzio, my wonderful co-authors, we wanted to see if we could write to an audience that was receiving something from outer space, we called it a meteor, and asking, was the meteor they were receiving from outer space a gift or a transfer? What was the intention of the person who sent the meteor out? And then, of course, there's a moment when it's neither that person's nor the recipient's, the liminal, like that moment between ice and water. And then it catches you. Boom, you catch it. And now it sits in you. The question we raised in the book on caritas is, if you don't send out a gift, you send out a transfer. Words sound the same. The philosophy and the spirituality underlying the difference between a transfer and a gift has everything to do with welcoming, by the way, coming back to that. What is my intention? If my intention is to complete a transaction, then I've made a transfer. If my intention is to make a gift, then I put love in the meteor. The question you raised, I put caritas in the meteor. My intention is different. Also, if I make a transfer, almost certainly I have some goal for you that creates obligation or duty with that meteor. You have to do something. I have some expectation for you. If I make a gift, it is to make you free. I love you. I make you free. I hope that you will find in this gift something that enables you, that gets to your heart, that says, I was loved. I was cared about. So these are the great questions, and Augustine asks these great questions. All the great spiritual leaders have asked these questions. What is your intention? And then how will that meteor that expresses your intention be integrated by the person who receives it? What is it they're integrating, and
what is likely to be the success or failure of that integration? That's caritas, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the thought behind the book, Love, Wisdom, Money, the Family Fiduciary's Guide to Generative Wealth, is all about preparing heirs. The responsibility, if you're going to drop a meteor on someone, you should at least let them know some of the implications of the gift, right? So, how do you see families kind of doing it right? Families welcoming in a way that they can that they pass their wisdom with love in a way for that next generation to generate their own wealth in their own way.
Well, this is at the core of yours and my conversations, no matter
how often we have them, this same question will come up. Let me say something first to the people who have taken their time, which is their treasure, to listen to us. I wanted to say that to them right now. Thank you. Buddy and I thank you. I speak for you, for your taking your time, which is your treasure, to listen to us. If you take something away from today, maybe many things, but for the moment, take something away from today. Please stop for a moment, wherever you are, sit quietly, sit back in your chair, and listen to this question I'm going to raise. What does the word wealth mean? Now, all of you who are listening are getting something from your left hemisphere, almost certainly, that says money, financial capital. That's fine. Let me assure you that the time you're taking today, you must reprogram your consciousness to the actual meaning of wealth, which is well-being. When the word came into New English, which was the combination of German and Latin, around 400 AD, that created the language that became English. From that moment, in that earliest moment of the Anglo-Saxon English period, the word wealth was two words, weol, W-E-O-L, weals. Garrett Wheeled. And what did it mean for all of English, for every dictionary, until very recently? Well-being, nothing else. So if we start, buddy, from the very, very moment that we hear the word wealth, the only thing we want is our right hemisphere, as the great McGilchrist taught us. We want to think about well-being. Wow. So am I wealthy? Oh, is that a big question? So if I were defining it for someone, which I've done in my books and you know about it, I would say, well, first of all, do you and your family, as you define it, the people with whom you have close affinity, have a common purpose to enhance each other's lives? That's well-being. It's spiritual well-being. That's interesting. Next, are we willing to make joint decisions together? Remember, we're two or more people as a family. That's another English definition. You can have a single person household, but you can't have a single person family. Oh, so we're a joint decision-making system. Uh-huh. And is it flat? Is it horizontal? Are we making joint decisions, or is there some, not because mother and child, of course, that's different. By the way, the child makes all the decisions for the mother the first 2 years of that care of the bad of the church is yours. So we have to make decisions together. That's our social Catholic. And then are we a learning system? Are we intellectually teaching each other? Are we sharing what we're learning? And then are we thriving human beings? Are we helping each other with our mind, body, spirit, our individually? Then we're wealthy. As we're growing our spiritual, social, intellectual, and human selves. And by the way, now the money has a purpose. Grow those. But when wealth looks like financial capital, you're in terrible trouble because you've misused the word. So the picture that the word is designed, a magnificent picture, to help you.
With wealth as well-being, you now have a very, very small cartoon.
Yeah, it's almost a stick figure.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great idiom. Yes.
When listening to you in the back of the room at PPI all those years, I started to think about, the capitals. And I've mentioned before that I tried explaining capitals, intellectual and financial capital to people and my clients, and their eyes kind of glazed over because I wasn't doing a very good job of communicating. And I kind of dawned on me that you're really talking about love, wisdom, and money together. And that I think that's something that almost everybody can relate to. But even more importantly, it took a while, maybe a few years, as I thought about it, that the order was very important. Because what I noticed in the industry is not all, but most of what everyone talked about was the money. And it was primary, when in fact money is that tool, and love is the driving force. Wisdom is kind of the guiding force, and then money is kind of the gas in the tank, or the engine that'll get you there.
I absolutely agree. Keep going. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, well, that's why when I was writing a book and I thought about this family in Tijuana, this organization that my wife and I support, called Build a Miracle. They don't just build houses in Mexico, but they use the building of a house for people who are living in shacks and squalor, as a means to an end. So the individuals in the program have to put in 200 hours of community service before they get a house. And then after they get a house, they put in another 200 hours of community service, helping other people build homes, helping Build a Miracle build the homes. And what this has done is it's turned them into a community. And this community center now, by the way, educates 7,000 people a month go through their community center. And it is love, wisdom, and money in action. But the reason I thought about it was money, try to make the point that money is the least important thing, although the money that we sponsors donated to help build those houses. And by the way, they can build a house and fully furnish it for $25,000, 400 square foot house with electricity and plumbing and a kitchen and a bathroom. It kind of supercharges the love and the wisdom they already have. In order to qualify for these houses, the families are vetted in that they're really trying to keep their kids off the streets and trying to educate them. They just don't have the means. And then by injecting the means, you can see it in action. And then this gets our priorities straight. And Jay, I really have you to thank for that, because it was your definition. I don't know, when did you write the book Family Wealth?
I wrote Family Wealth back in the mid 90s. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, and so it's 30 years old or so, and that book really opened my eyes to the breakdown, because it just seemed to me prior to that there were no lines. There was no, what is what, and in this human capital and intellectual capital and financial capital is what inspired me to do the work that I'm doing now, and I just can't thank you enough for that. And so, where do people start? I mean, if they're hearing this for the first time, they're going, "Well, that makes sense," because when I mention the name of the book to people, their eyes seem to light up, and they go, "Well, that sounds interesting." Uh, but now that we have their interest, where do they start?
Well, let me say that I think a starting point is right where we are at the moment, and that is, can I cause my consciousness to understand that wealth means well-being? That is the moment of truth. And from there, everything becomes possible. That's maybe the first step, as that wonderful Chinese philosopher said, the first step in the journey of 1,000 miles or infinite journey is to know that wealth means well-being, that our language actually has in it all the concepts, all the pictures that lead you to health. Well-being, eudaimonia, however it's defined in all the different cultures, is the gift of the social philosophers as to how to live a great life. Are you experiencing well in your being? Are you being well? You can play with the words however one wants to. Now, let me also say something very specific for the moment, because the question you're asking, how do you begin? My father, I said earlier today, I probably would quote him, or I'm going to quote him, was very often said to me when we were dealing with a family issue of our own family sometimes, and sometimes the client families, where is the beginnings? Seems like we always know where the beginning. No, we don't know where the beginning is. There's a lot of life that is preparing for the beginning. So if people say, well, I understand wealth is well-being, I can reprogram my consciousness, but where is the beginning for us? And I say, well, it isn't where you think it is. This was my father's gift. Well, what do you mean, Jay? I'm okay. I'm not being Yoda-like. No, I'm just asking you to slow down. Feste lente, hasten slowly. That's another thing from my father, which
Hasten slowly. Me either.
oh my goodness, is that skipped in life. So as an example, somebody says, okay, I think I understand you, Jay. I understand the beginning isn't yet. I need to get to the beginning. I think, yes, I said, now we have, how should we prepare? What do you want? I said, well, let's imagine for the moment, coming back again to the philosopher's comment that a journey of 1,000 miles is the first step. I said, it sounds like you need to take the first step. That's not what he meant. What he meant was you have to prepare so you have the right first step. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, Jay. Well, come on, now stop being philosophical. Give me some praise. Say, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you and your wife or husband and all your children and all your grandchildren and their trustees, by the way, and the family office executives, do they know how every family member learns? What? You're going to type my kids? Slow down, Mom. Slow down, Grandma. I'm not going to type your kids or your grandchildren. I love them, you love them. No, but let me ask you a question. If we have a common purpose to grow each other and well-being over a very long period of time, then a little bit like going on a hike. I see where you're going, Jay. Each of us needs a map in the way we best read it. One needs a topo, one needs words, one needs pictures. Huh. Yeah, we don't all understand. We understand the map and
Where we're going, but we need different map, don't we, buddy?
yes, we do.
One that corresponds to how we learn.
Huh. I never thought of that. Well, okay, but let's go a little deeper. There's some very wise people, going back to Ben Franklin, or you could go back to Aristotle, or you could go anywhere you want. You're always going to get the same answer about learning. How you have to be experiential. But if we experience the same thing differently, not but and, huh. So what you're saying is, it would make a lot of sense of us in preparing for the journey, not going on it yet, to find out how we all learn. Yeah. Yeah, and the trustees and the family always as well. Now, everybody is very enthusiastic, but I always have to tell people the truth. As soon as I offer this, and as soon as we get the person to come and we take the 4 hours and we answer the questions and we learn how we learn, now the trustees in the family office have a problem because they probably don't learn the way all the family members do. So they've been giving information, intellectual capital, in one learning style. Their clients might have 3 of the 6.
Well, Jay, what you did with that last explanation was help me remember my journey in working with clients, as I didn't realize initially that it was a matter of learning style. I'll tell you a story. There was a couple that we worked with, just a beautiful couple, and they were both second marriages, and they both loved their families. They both got through divorces and moved on, and were just wonderful, beautiful, loving people. And he was an engineer, and she worked in HR, so you couldn't get farther apart. And when we would be in the meetings together, I could see that she was paying attention, and but she really wasn't engaged. But he was really like the numbers and the charts. So he was just all into it. And then he passed away. And I asked her, after I realized that she was this different learning style, I asked her, what were you doing while we were talking about all those numbers and charts? She goes, well, I was thinking about what I was going to have for lunch, and there's a mall across the street, and where we were going to shop, and she just kind of bided her time until she got out of there. And so what we did is part of that. It reminds me of, in one of your books, you talk about the family sitting around a round table and they're all looking at a beach ball that has colors on different sizes and asking each one of the family members what color's the ball. So I heard a quote once by Ted Turner, who just passed away, and he said, "If I have a manager who has all the information in front of him and can't make a decision in 20 minutes, I'll fire him." So what we did with our process, we call it the super plan. It's just this plan of plans that, and now it's a game. So that's another way that we approached it, is we turned this what we call the family wealth game, where you take lifestyle, portfolio, and legacy, and you play all three games at the same time. And we set it, we displayed it or presented it in such a way that there was something in there for everybody. If we had someone that loved numbers, the numbers were there. But if somebody liked pictures, the pictures were there. And if someone else was a relator, that was there. And that was just a significant part of our success with the firm that I started and have since sold, and the new owners are carrying on, but it's kind of a challenge for them because they were typical financial people, right? And they cared about their clients, but they never played the game.
Well, Buddy, what you did, coming back to our earlier conversation, you made gifts.
You cared, Caritas. And isn't it really the responsibility of those of us who walk with other people, like Virgil did with Dante, if people want to think what a quick minute away, isn't it our responsibility to them to know who the hell they are?
Yep.
They're not a number. They're not a balance sheet. Now, I'm perfectly comfortable that banks do intermediation of cash or some form of investment. That's fine. It's a bank business. But that has nothing to do with growing a family, does it? It's intermediation of financial capital. It's fine, but it has nothing to do with the qualitative questions we're debating of care, kindness, Augustine, Aristotle we're talking about today. The whole question of being the advisor to a family is qualitative. The entire question is qualitative. Now, I'll say something I said earlier, but I'm going to weave it in right here with what you did with your firm. If the advisor sees his or her work as intermediation of financial capital, then they must be very clear to the client, I have no qualitative skills to offer you. There's no EQ here. Our deal is I am intermediating capital. Okay, fine. Well then, but my concern, says that client, beyond that is I'd like to have wealth as well-being. I want to grow a family. Oh, okay. I can't help you. Oh, you really have to say that in the sale? Yeah, you have to say, I can't help you. It's not my job. I have no skills for it. Yes, I have a department that looks like it's qualitative, but it's a marketing exercise. Oh dear, and we're telling some really horrible truths here. So then the question for the client is to say, well, where can I find my Virgil? Where can I find Buddy to walk with me or Jay to walk with me? And ask me the kinds of questions we're discussing today, because they're the ones I'm actually interested in. Because if I actually look back at the question of the meteor, I look back at the question of a gift or transfer, and I understand what they're saying to me, that I am going to send people I love a meteor from outer space, has nothing to do with them at all, something I created. They have an unbelievably difficult integration problem, don't they? Wow. Yeah, they've got to integrate something that's alien to them. That's a fact. That's the fact. And by the way, with maybe 180 other people around the world and the foundation that has my name on it, we're trying to awaken the world to the reality of the millions and millions of families that will have integration events for the first time in their entire history over the next 50 years as $100 to $120 trillion has to be intermediated. But every single one of those people has a problem of integration. So the great advisors and the great work that you were doing with your firm, and that hopefully you're in transition, I don't like succession, the transition that you chose, hopefully they understand that their task in having chosen to be the transition is that they have to be interested in the qualitative questions of their clients' integrations. Now, by the way, so people don't think we're being impractical, we're not. We're being very practical. If you have 100 to 120 trillion created since World War II, all over the world, maybe because of the Marshall Plan enabling peace for 80 years by giving back to the spoils of war, that's an interesting thing for another day, mate. But what we know is that 100 to 120 trillion dollars is going to move twice in the next 50 years. That's already fixed. That's not going to change. Every person who receives a piece of that has an integration problem. The great questions, I think, buddy, and I don't want to go too off on this, but say this. I think the great question of the next 50 years, which interests men like you as they hit our ages, as we love the future, we see further by, as Churchill said, we can see further ahead because we can see further behind. He was dead right about that. So if we know what's coming, and we know that that money has to be intermediated, which it does, the financial capital all over the world, or whatever forms it's a. And we realize then that every person who receives a piece of it has an integration problem. The thing that's going to challenge the intermediators is that none of their clients, or very few of their clients, will be these people who took energy and made it matter, which has been the dominant pattern of the last 80 years, which has created this extraordinary abundance. Well, if you just think about the normal human life, we are mortal, and those people are going away fast, then who will be the new clients? Those who are receiving meteors. So what we're talking about this morning is not only our deep, shared lives as we come to know each other, but the reality of who the client will be. And that client has a different set of issues than the person who took energy and made it matter. That wife, that second lady you're talking about, is just the most perfect example of what I just said for the last 5 minutes. She is not the person who took energy and made it matter. She is a person who has an integration issue, right?
And by the way, she did a wonderful job of integrating. Because
No, you did a wonderful job of integration, my friend, and she is the beneficiary. Shh, can't say
well,
that.
I was just a facilitator, and I think that's
Oh,
really
yes,
important
sure.
for us to understand as advisors, is that we are facilitating someone else's journey.
That's Virgil's job for Dante, isn't it?
I didn't know.
But I mean, basically, it's 3 huge volumes of 2 guys on a journey. One who's got a problem. I don't know where to begin.
And the other guy says, I'll help you. Oh, really? Oh, that's pretty useful.
So there's nothing new under the sun. It's just in how each of us approach it and commit to it. I also heard something interesting just recently, that the difference between confidence and courage is that confidence feels good, but courage doesn't feel good. Because you
No, and by the way, the great advisor, like you, is also a shaman. And what is the shaman's task? To take the person with the courage to know they have to change, they have to evolve, and make it safe.
Wow, this is what the shaman does. This is what the elders do throughout all of human history, without getting, again, off track today. But the lack of elders in our modern society is the deficit we are most in deficit about. It's the elders who are committed to the well-being of the whole. That whole through the different stages of its evolution. So, yeah, courage is what's needed for evolution. It's the force, it's the life force, but it's really hard.
And it feels really scary.
Yeah, the one of the experiences I had over the last 40 years was family leaders would hire us, and then we'd take them through the process. And when it came time for the courage, I used to paraphrase it as the only people who failed with our process were those who weren't willing to do what they had to do in order to get what they said they wanted.
And knew that they had to do it and didn't.
And still didn't. Well, they wrote us a check, so they must have known it.
Oh, they did. But
Yeah.
But then you see, you need a partner. And you do need an elder or a shaman. You need what society has taught us in social anthropology and culture. Every community has to have some people who wisdom, love, grow in the understanding, to be interested in the whole. All boats rising. When years ago, somebody asked me, what do you mean when you said the spiritual path of a family is to seek to enhance each other's journeys of happiness? I said, well, if that sounds a little erudite, which I hope it didn't, I thought it was pretty basic. I said, look, somebody who
each of you cares that all the boats rise. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, no one left behind.
Yeah, that's where David York's beautiful explanation of stewardship, where it's you're an owner, but you're altruistic. It's about others. And I also heard another quote. This is from Bishop Robert Barron. Defines love as wishing another well and acting on it. That's love in action. So, Jay, we could probably talk for days, and I hope to continue the conversation with you at some point. I'll be at Rendezvous here in a couple months. I don't know if you're going to make it, but anyway, this has been fantastic. A fantastic experience for me, and I hope our listeners appreciate it as well. I can't thank you enough for being here, but before we sign off, after this conversation, is there anything you have that you'd like to say to kind of wrap it up?
Well, first of all, this has been a gift to me today. Thank you. Second, I would say to all the people who took the time, their treasure, to participate in this conversation, because they've all been in the conversation. I hope they feel they have. My blessings on your journey. May your family reach the 5th generation in good shape and go on from there.
Thank you, Jay Hughes. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. To learn more about the Love, Wisdom, Money podcast, please subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. To get more information about Love, Wisdom, Money and our Super Plan program, please visit lovewisdommoney.com. I wish you all the best for your family and your community as you strive to flourish and grow your love, wisdom, and money.